Welcome to More Than Our Story, where we strive to inspire by sharing our stories. I'm Daniel Height, and today I'm joined by Casey Kidson. Casey's a triathlete living and racing with dystonia. She's also an Olympic hopeful for the 2028 LA Paralympic Games and an ambassador for AdaptX, a company focused on making fitness and sport more accessible. Casey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I just want to start off by saying I love your attitude. You
Thank you.
posted a few weeks back on Instagram that your year wasn't off to the greatest start, and you brushed it off by simply saying, "Hey, some seasons aren't about perfection; they're about persistence." How
Yes.
much does that phrase encapsulate your attitude towards life?
Yeah. So, it's been, yeah, like you said, it's been quite a year. So I've been dealing with a few health challenges and stuff like that. And it does like keeping that hope alive. Growing up and stuff with dystonia, I was always trying to achieve and push where I could. And I'm try to stay as positive as I can. I know some of those days really get you down and they can knock you down quite hard, but knowing that that's just a small portion of where you're going to be from now, and I just try to keep looking ahead and know that I've I've been there before, I've been down before, and I've also been on those higher levels. So that in between is sometimes the hardest part to be at. So, but yeah, so it really it does make it challenging, but it just hanging on to that hope and not letting it go.
Maybe we could kick off at the top of the show by having you inform the listeners about dystonia
Mhm.
and what it is and your particular form of it.
Yeah, so dystonia is a neurological condition. So it causes involuntary muscle contractions and leading to kind of abnormal positioning and movements. So I have myoclonus dystonia, which is a genetic form of dystonia, and there's kind of three different types. There's primary dystonia, genetic dystonia, and then the secondary dystonias, which could be caused by perhaps a stroke or a brain injury. So mine falls under the genetic form. There's approximately 50,000 Canadians diagnosed with dystonia and living with dystonia daily, and the various forms of dystonia. So that's a little bit about me. I started having symptoms around age 3, but wasn't actually diagnosed till age 15. So there was quite a big gap in there where we didn't quite know what condition I had. So yeah, that.
Was it your age that complicated and made that process
Um,
of actually getting an official diagnosis? Because at 3, you obviously can't explain what's going on.
exactly. So, yeah, so it is a bit complicated. I think back then, going through the diagnosis and stuff like that, more so the age as well as my condition sort of progressed a little bit along the way as well. So, which was typical for myoclonus dystonia. So, it would kind of plateau around the age of 18 or those later teen years. And a lot, unfortunately, was to do with as well the lack of research and knowledge about dystonia. Um, so, it was kind of a bit less known or heard of back then. When I was first diagnosed, I was told, I think the closest person living with dystonia, closest to you, is about an hour or so away. So it was kind of left in that there's not quite a few people with dystonia. So yeah, so I think it was now we're building on research and stuff like that, which is super, super incredible and very important.
Was it hard to find a neurologist with the appropriate training?
Yeah, so we actually with my official diagnosis, I met with a team of probably 10 to 12 neurologists. I remember coming into a big room and they were sitting all around the room, had me perform different exercises, different things that they were looking for that may kind of be able to properly diagnose it. And yeah, so it was finding that one, she kind of had my original neurologist had some idea of what was happening, but wanted to kind of clarify with the team, the team members. So my official diagnosis through genetic testing actually came through the States, and that was done. through a hospital in Ottawa, Ontario. So a little bit
So
of
you
traveling.
mentioned your particular case is genetic.
Mhm.
Do any of your family members have it?
Yeah, so it more so there's some family members on my dad's side that have various forms of dystonia. So there is a bit of a path, um, and it is for my form anyway. My myoclonus dystonia. It's more prominent on male dominance would carry the gene. Yeah.
So how did your symptoms first start presenting?
Yeah, so when I was 3, my parents started to notice just I couldn't really sit still, and I would like go to do something, and I was constantly kind of moving and trying to getting into kindergarten and stuff around 4 or 5, and trying to hold a pen or a pencil, crayon probably at that time, um, and trying to stay in the lines and stuff like that. So it started with just the kind of the twitching and the unable to stay still, and then it gradually progressed to more the neck pulling to one side, and then it just kind of I did have a lot of teachers some teachers would reach out to my parents or pediatricians and stuff and think, oh, maybe it's Tourette's. So there was kind of that misdiagnosis. They weren't really sure, and then I kind of, like I said, plateaued around the age of 18 sort of thing, and has stabilized at this point in my life. So
So there's no treatment. There's no cure, I should say, but there are
yeah.
treatments available. They're very individualized. Have you explored any of those?
So there are yes, unfortunately no cure at this point, but there are treatments. So for myself, I've tried various different medications over the years, and unfortunately, for me personally, a lot of the side effects from the medications in pill forms was the side effects kind of weighed a little bit heavier than the results that I was getting. So um, many trials in that sense. And then Botox treatment is a common treatment for many dystonia patients. So right now, that is my treatment course. I get injections 4 times a year, so once a season, and I get usually in my neck, up my neck, down my traps a bit, and the doctor will use, or my neurologist will use, like an ultrasound machine to see where the muscles are firing most, and that's where I'll get my injections. Thirdly, there's also deep brain stimulation, which is another DBS is a common, somewhat common treatment that some patients will use. I did travel to London, Ontario to speak to a neurologist there about my option for that. Currently, with my physical activity level of like competitiveness within triathlon, it wasn't a route for me at this point, but I could be a potential candidate for it, but I just chosen not to follow that route at this point in my life.
So you've always been very outspoken. Well, maybe not always. And how you refuse to let it define your limits. How
Mhm.
long did it take you to accept your
Yeah.
diagnosis and really embrace it through advocacy?
Yeah, so a long time. Many years through school and stuff, I'd be kind of that look like that shyer child at the back of the room trying to, I'd interact with my friends and stuff like that. But when it came time to trying to find a space in the classroom, I would usually sit off to the side or the back to kind of try and hide and control the tremors and fit in, especially with fine motor activities like writing, taking notes. That was extremely challenging. Um, so, I'd try to fit in, but I would stay kind of quiet. And then through high school and college years, I would starting to come out more of my shell and stuff. I mean, I was always super active, involved in activities and sports and stuff like that was kind of my happy place. But in college, I actually, reached out and I received more support in that space for note taking and stuff like that. So I accessed some of those resources, which I had never done before. And, you look back and you're like, oh, I should have done, I should have, reached out. But at that point, you're just not quite ready to do that. So in college, I reached out and I accessed support systems and stuff like that within the college, and most beneficial, super beneficial. And then once I got through college, it was when I started working and stuff like that, I did my first, this kind of the tie into it. I did my first mile race in 2015. And after that, I was just like, wow, this is, I kept going on that. It built up to a 5K. And then that's kind of where, once I made my connection with DMRF Canada, the Dystonia Medical Research Foundation of Canada, and established Defying Dystonia in 20 and beginning parts of 2017, that was my spark. That's what changed everything for me. And
So I can relate to finding relief through physical activity.
yes.
Triathlon was obviously something where I could focus my energy and attention after my own diagnosis with brain cancer. How did you find triathlon?
So so I started running, and then a friend of mine did an Ironman, and when I seen her race an Ironman, I was like, wow, looks incredibly difficult and challenging, but like what a accomplishment. So I first signed up for my first my Iron Girl race in summer of 2016. I remember registering in March. I did not own a bike. I swam for, relaxation. And I was like, I'm going to sign up. My home was like, you don't even have a bike yet. And I was like, oh, I know. It's a step, sign up. And I just kind of built over the kind of spring and into the summer. And it was just absolutely incredible competing that first triathlon. It was just holding on to that goal sort of thing. And even on those difficult days, it was like, I'm just pushing to get to that goal, which I found amazing. And being out there really helps. It really helps my dystonia, being the physical activity part of it. It, as much as it is a challenge and it presents challenges, especially, in the run and the swim and stuff. But it's, a feeling that that freedom almost.
So how not to get too, I guess, into it, but how does dystonia affect your athletic performance when it comes to triathlon?
Yeah. So during the kind of break it down, the swim basically is a bit so because my left side is more affected in my upper body, the swim can present challenges with range of motion through the stroke, and the turning to breathe on the sides, with my neck being tight and the movements as they are, presents challenges to try and turn and breathe properly and keep the balance and stability. As you know, prize swimming is very technical. So in that portion, the bike for me is more stability and control. So a bit of the muscle power and stuff, but the trying to hold and control the bike, especially if I'm trying to ride in the drop bars or in aero, which I'm working on, is very challenging. Or accessing food and nutrition on the bike can be very challenging for me. So it's kind of that stop and go. If I'm on a longer ride, it's kind of taking those breaks off to the side so that I can actually refuel properly without tipping over. And then the run, I run actually with a FO brace. It's my my actual right side for my lower body. My foot will kind of curl under and turn in a little bit, so I use the brace to help kind of stabilize and support that through the run.
So you compete in the PTS4
Yes,
classification, is that correct?
that's correct. Yes, yeah.
And for all the listeners out there, can you explain what that means?
Yeah. So it's part of the paratriathlon categories. So it's a standing category, and it's for moderate to mild impairments for individuals who say may have a neurological condition such as mine, or maybe have a amputation of a hand, or part of an arm, or part of a leg even. And so yeah, so we swim, bike, run as we are, but we may have those adaptations or modifications, such as to our bike. My bike maybe set up slightly different with my aero bars. And then for the run, we're allowed to use, a brace or something like that to help and assist with that to get through.
You actually competed in the World Triathlon Para Cup in Magog, Quebec
Yes,
last year.
I did.
How did you do?
It was great. It was a fantastic experience. I had just actually received my international classification, so my official classification to race there a few days prior. So that was my first race. It was fantastic experience. I just felt like I belonged. I did quite well. I for my first one, I was extremely nervous going into it, a little apprehensive, but the swim went better than I kind of had expected. The bike felt great. My run was a little bit challenging. My foot was giving me, and actually my arm and my shoulder, because once I get running as well, the shoulder tends to tighten up and stuff. So it did give me a little bit of a challenge at the end, and but I made it through. I finished fourth in that race, so that actually gave me some points and standings to go into the world triathlon standings, which is great, and what I need to kind of help me advance forward. So that was exciting to find that out.
So what does this season have in store for you?
Yeah, so this season, I've made a few modifications because of my little bit of a hiccup at the beginning of the season. So I was actually supposed to be competing in a high rock adaptive category in Ottawa in May, but I've switched that to, I'm now racing a sprint distance triathlon in Ottawa. So I'll still be in Ottawa at the Early Bird. And then I'm going to be racing at the Perth, Ontario triathlon at the beginning of June. And then I'm heading into a bigger set, one of my A races. I'm heading off to Edmonton, Alberta, for a bit of training leading into our national para open championships. So that'll be in mid-July. And then I'm going to be probably racing, I'd say Toronto. I haven't fully registered yet. Hopefully something in August. And then potentially seeing how I do in Edmonton, that will determine if I race another kind of World Cup in the fall. So with hopeful, there's a couple coming up in the fall in Portugal, and there's Turkey. So we'll see. So fingers crossed for a strong season, and then we'll kind of go from there.
So you're also part of the 100 Strong Funding Initiative. Do you want to share a little bit about that initiative and what it
Yeah.
provides?
Yeah, so so I started the 100 Strong campaign as a way to kind of raise funds for my training and my goals within my triathlon season. So I started this campaign as a way to reach out to local businesses or businesses in and around Ontario to help support that. So with each $100 donation, they become kind of part of the 100 Strong campaign and supporting my triathlon season. And then I decided from that, I believe we're both dog lovers. So I have two rescues from Dominican Republic. So they're from Dogs and Cats of Dominican. And I thought, what a fun way to also raise funds for myself, but also support a fantastic charity. So I've decided to donate 15% of each $100 donation to DCDR to purchase mobility carts for dogs that have mobility challenges, or they may be a tripod, they call them. So to support, because I know they need extra support down there, and purchasing those and supporting those dogs that they rescue and support. So
How can people find the 100 Strong initiative and
Yeah.
support you?
Yeah, so you can find it on so it's on my Instagram page, which is at defying underscore dystonia. I've shared it on there, as well as I'm on my Facebook page, Casey Kidson dash read, and I share it on there quite a bit, or through my stories, and we kind of, and as well as my Defying Dystonia page on Facebook, and I share it on there quite often. And there's just basically my email and everything is on the page that I share, and they can reach out or comment on the caption to become part of our 100 Strong campaign.
Perfect. And I will also include all of that below on the link of
Perfect.
this video and on the website profile.
Thank you.
Um, so we at the top we mentioned that you're hopeful for representing Canada at the 2028 LA Paralympic Games. What does that journey look like in terms of training camps, trials, and ultimately qualification?
Yeah, so that's kind of been my my long-term goal when I got started with Paratriathlon Ontario, and then onto the high performance kind of development team with Triathlon Canada. So yeah, it's going to be a challenging road, especially with a little bit of a delayed start this season, because it is. I know it seems like a ways off, but then when you look at the big picture, it's like it'll be soon. So that is my long-term goal, to qualify at some point. Hopefully, I mean, 2028 would be fantastic, or 2032 would be the next one, I suppose. And so, yeah, so it's just kind of sticking to my plan the best I can. My coaches have been fantastic in kind of adapting this season so far, for example. But we're back on track, and it's kind of sticking to the plan, but also having acceptance and grace, in the sense that it might not always go as planned. And I think that's the biggest point for me, is accepting that. And I mean, I could be clear cut. I'm going, and there's no drag, but unfortunately, I mean, we all know that's those roads are not always straight. They're going to have little roundabouts. You're going to have turns, bumps, hills. So yeah, I think just leading with kind of that open mind, being present in your day to day kind of training and goals, and then just being positive, that and knowing yourself, knowing and trusting the training. Because I mean, going into my first race in just a few weeks here, I'm putting a lot of trust in myself, and knowing that I'm capable of coming up to that race, even though I've had those setbacks. So I think a positive mind, and grace and acceptance, and then being being grateful for each day.
Well said. And I guess to circle back to the beginning, persistence, not perfection.
100%, 100%. Yep, yep.
So you're an ambassador for AdaptX. Can you share a little
Yeah,
bit about them and what they do
yeah.
and what your role is?
Yeah, so AdaptX is a nonprofit through actually through the states, and their focus is making fitness accessible. They're out of Massachusetts, Lancaster, Massachusetts, and I'm one of their few ambassadors for their initial season of having ambassadors, and many of them are from the States. So I'm one of the only Canadians, and so we work together to try and create that promotion of um, accessible fitness for all, especially those with disabilities. So they have been fantastic in supporting my journey. And they help to provide support along the way with some coaching, and they also provide some training gear and stuff for us, which is fantastic, as well as some funding to help support our races, and the fees that we may pay throughout the season. And yeah, so they also run multiple unified 5Ks throughout the states right now. We're hoping to bring one to Canada. And that's where you can run, walk, wheel. So people of all abilities come together to raise funds and then complete, I should say, not compete, complete a 5K together. So yeah, so they're a fantastic organization and I'm super grateful for their support.
So, what would you say dystonia has taught you about yourself?
So I would say dystonia has taught me that well, I hate to take it further, but the Iron Man saying is anything is possible. So even though you have your limits, your boundaries that may be created by a disability or anything that you may be experiencing, I like to say defy the storm. So any of those little storms that you may be experiencing, whether it be a setback, a medical challenge, anything like that, that you do have the ability to push through to the other side where that sun will be shining through that storm and staying strong through your journey. And yeah, so I would just say that limitations don't define us and that we can push through. And yeah, so defy the storm. That's my kind of saying. I write it on my arm through my races, and it's always kind of. I should probably just get a tattoo, and then I don't have to redo it every time. But that's kind of always been my motto.
So, what would you say to somebody newly receiving a dystonia diagnosis?
Yeah, so I would say keeping those connections because sometimes it can be very getting that diagnosis. You're kind of like feel so closed out. You feel shy and kind of like withdrawn. But I found keeping your connections and your voice heard is very, very important. And I know I was in the same boat. So I would, people would say to me, like, are you, oh, you're nervous, you're cold. I used to kind of get like some of the teachers in elementary and high school, like, oh, well, we deduct some marks because you looked a little nervous or you seemed a little nervous. Well, back then I would just say, oh, okay. Well, now, now the Casey today would say, oh, well, I have dystonia. Like I would explain it. So, I mean, I know as challenging as it is, and I was there, to use your voice and make yourself heard and your needs heard as well. So, and listen and reach out to your support teams. That's very important. Your family, your friends, your
Yep.
care providers. So yeah, it's and physical activity can, as hard as it is sometimes, even those small breaks, 5-10 minutes of just like little exercises and stuff can make a big difference. So
Well said. Well said. So, Casey, I've really, really, really enjoyed speaking with you today. Your
thank you.
spirit and outlook are truly an inspiration. Keep, as you say, defying the storm, advocating for dystonia, and proving that limits are not the end. And to use your Iron Man
Yeah.
reference, anything is possible. Good luck in your upcoming season. I'll be cheering you on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me today, Daniel, and thank
Uh,
you, and good luck with all your endeavors as well.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.